Perhaps most of all, everyone out there and others across the breadth of this nation are 43 million Americans with disabilities. You have made this happen. All of you have made this happen. And with today's signing of the landmark Americans for Disabilities Act, every man, woman, and child with a disability can now pass through once closed doors into a bright new era of equality, independence, and freedom.
My name's Emily Watkins. I'm the lead disabilities desk reporter at WBFO. I do investigative journalism that focuses on the disability community. We look at disability through a social lens, and so my desk focuses on disability rights and access issues impacting the community. It sounds like we're already on track to cover the two things that most people with disabilities are worried about, which is the COLA and fair pay. In my freshman year, I realized I wanted to pivot from sports journalism to investigative journalism, and throughout my time in college, I wasn't really sure what I wanted my beat to be. At the same time I was in college, I started to kind of come to terms with my own disabilities, and I also started to get diagnoses for conditions I had had for quite a while. At the end of high school, there was a day where I woke up and struggled to walk. It was not that, it wasn't like a numbness, it was like a pain. My legs were so painful, it was just hard to walk around, get dressed. And my dad had just gotten diagnosed a year before with rheumatoid arthritis. And we went and got a second opinion, and another doctor said, look at each other, you have the same symptoms, I think you have this.
If you think about, okay, caregivers and family members and friends, you're really talking about a huge number of people who are interested in and have a stake in disability coverage.
Connecting with my own community, and then when COVID hit, being in my community, seeing how my community was really upset that not a lot of the coverage really focused on us. Most of the coverage was about, you know, if you were not an immunocompromised person, how do you go to the store? How do you do these things? A lot of it, you know, didn't focus on the needs of the disability community, and I even felt that myself.
It's really important that people with disabilities are in the room and at the table and having these conversations about them and policies that affect them.
I think that finding more sources that kind of step outside of people's traditional understanding or stereotypes of disability also helps more people feel like they can claim that identity.
I think where we really lag behind still is in employment of people with disabilities in newsrooms and the acceptance in newsrooms of an openness to people with disabilities in newsrooms.
It's really embarrassing in the middle of the newsroom to have someone come up and basically misunderstand my disability and do it in front of people and not let me make the decision about my disclosure and what accommodations I need. My body does change the way I do certain things. The arthritis started impacting my hands halfway through college, and when that happened, I kind of have lost the ability to write more than a page or two without my hands cramping up. So a challenge has kind of been, you know, before I was open about my disability, I would go into courtrooms to do reporting, and they don't really let you bring laptops. And so I had to kind of come up with shorthand and work through my cramping the best I could and try and find other ways to remember things. At WBFO, we've taken a lot of our inspiration for this desk from the social model and kind of asking what could be different if things were built different, if they had been created with people with disabilities in mind.
I think that at the individual level, it's all mindset. I think that no great change will come until mindset is changed individually.
The social model looks at it as people with disabilities not being able to do something is because of the way society was built.
And the ADA was passed with the social model in mind, and the idea that disability is fluid and you never know when you're going to become disabled, and you never know whether someone is disabled just by looking at them. And I think that the ADA has done a really great job of defining disability, which I know the ADA did strategically so that it wouldn't be a medical model.
Important too for journalists who are learning about disability journalism to do your research and understand how the medical model has created a culture in some instances where people try to heal certain disabilities or cure certain disabilities because they see that curing a disability or ending disability in some way would solve the problem. J schools and our industry has a really long way to go. I think there is a lot of ableism ingrained into the process of becoming a journalist.
In terms of journalism education in particular, I think a good start is language. And we have our disability language style guide that is available and used widely around the world. That would be sort of like you use the AP style book. This is a way to make sure that you're understanding the power of language.
AP style guide generally lags behind the National Center on Disability and Journalism style guide, because the National Center on Disability and Journalism style guide is written and created by a lot of people with disabilities.
The NCDJ is not an advocacy organization as much as a journalism organization. So what we're trying to do is provide, guidance, help, support to journalists and other communications professionals who are, covering or depicting diversity or disability.
A lot of J schools are starting to work more on teaching how to report on diversity and how to report on communities that are not yours. But I think that from what I've noticed, not all of these efforts have also included disability. They've included racial and gender equity, but disability equity, not so much.
Just like you're doing sourcing on other kinds of populations, you wouldn't write about, a transgender issue without talking to a transgender person. That same thing is true when you're writing about disability. And so I think those are just some of the important points that should be covered in journalism school, but not as a separate thing, but as part of what you're learning.
I think we are on the verge of this industry really changing, but people just have to be willing to change, and newsrooms just have to be willing to change. And the thing I love about my newsroom is that I'm able to go out and say, this is how we do things here. You can do that too. You're not stealing it from me. This industry could be better if we just work together to make it better. We're out here. And I would also challenge that there are disabled journalists at every news organization. It's just how comfortable are they being open and honest, or are they there yet with their own journey of identity?